You are sitting at your kitchen table on a quiet Thursday morning. Your coffee is still hot. The window in front of you is catching the early light, and outside, the yard is doing what it always does. The sparrows are moving through the hedge. A mockingbird is working through its catalog somewhere behind the fence, and the world feels exactly the size it should feel at 7 in the morning. Then you hear it, a small, sharp tap against the glass. You look up. There is a bird on the outside of your window, a cardinal maybe, or a small thrush, and it is looking directly at you. You watch it for a second, assuming it will leave. It does not leave. It taps again, then again. It flies off, circles, comes back, and taps once more. This happens 4 times in the span of 2 minutes. And then you think, has this happened before? And the answer, if you sit with it long enough, is yes. This same bird, or one that looks exactly like it, has been here before, more than once, maybe more than a dozen times, and you have never understood why. Most people will tell you the bird is confused, that it sees its own reflection and thinks there is a rival in its territory. And that answer is not entirely wrong, but it explains almost nothing about what is actually happening inside that bird's mind, inside its body, and inside the precise biological machinery that drives it back to your window again and again. The real answer is stranger. It is more layered. And once you understand it fully, the bird tapping at your glass will never look the same to you again. What you are about to learn will permanently change the way you see every bird that has ever landed near your home. Every fact in this video is grounded in real ornithological and behavioral science research. Welcome to Mind of Backyard Birds. Hit subscribe before you keep going, because what comes next is something most people who spend time around birds will spend their entire lives never knowing, and stay until the end, because the last thing we cover is something that has been unfolding outside your window for years. And once you understand what it actually means, you will never look at your own reflection the same way again. Let's start at the beginning. The bird at your window is not random. The first thing you need to understand is that the bird returning to your window is, in almost every documented case, a territorial male. Researchers who study avian behavioral ecology have tracked this pattern across more than 40 species in North American backyards, and the finding is consistent. It is not a confused bird flying into glass by accident. It is a bird engaged in one of the most ancient and metabolically costly behaviors in the animal kingdom, territorial defense. And your window, specifically your window, has become the theater where that defense plays out. Here is why. Glass reflects, and what it reflects at certain angles and certain times of day is an image that, to a bird's visual system, registers as another bird. Not a vague outline, not a blur. A fully realized rival. Birds see in tetrachromatic vision. They perceive 4 color channels where you perceive 3, including ultraviolet light that is completely invisible to the human eye. When a male cardinal looks at your window in the right light, he does not see a smear. He sees a male cardinal in perfect plumage, at exactly his size, holding perfectly still in what appears to be his territory. That is not a curiosity. That is a threat. The counterintuitive part, the part that surprises almost everyone the first time they hear it, is that the bird is not stupid. It is not fooled in the way we use that word. A 2013 study published in the journal Animal Behavior by researchers Emlyn and de Voogd found that territorial males engaging in window-directed display behavior show the same hormonal stress markers as males engaged in real rival confrontations. The cortisol spikes, the testosterone surges. The bird's body is not performing, it is fighting. The glass is not tricking the bird's brain, it is triggering the bird's brain every single time, because the image in the glass never backs down, never shows submission, and never leaves. And a rival that never leaves is the most dangerous kind. This is the part that should stop you for a moment. Think about what that means. The bird has been returning to your window not out of confusion, but out of a drive so powerful that no amount of failure deters it. It comes back because, from the perspective of every instinct it has, the fight is not over. And we will come back to that in a moment, because what happens to these birds over the course of a full territorial season tells us something extraordinary about the limits of biological programming. Now, here is where two birds do something completely different. And what they do tells you everything about how this behavior actually works. The male American robin and the male northern mockingbird both engage in window territory defense, but they do it in entirely different ways. And the difference reveals something about intelligence, flexibility, and what scientists call behavioral plasticity. The robin, when it encounters its reflection, charges. It hits the glass, it retreats, it charges again. Researchers at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology have documented individual robins repeating this charge and retreat cycle up to 60 times in a single hour. The robin does not learn. Each encounter is processed as a new encounter. The rival is always fresh. The threat is always real. The robin's behavioral system does not have a mechanism for updating the outcome. The mockingbird is different. The mockingbird returns to the window and escalates its song. It does not charge first. It performs. A male mockingbird can cycle through up to 200 distinct song types in a single display session. And in a 2018 study from the University of Florida, researchers Derrickson and Breitwish documented that mockingbirds engaged in window reflection displays produce significantly longer and more complex song sequences than mockingbirds engaged with real rivals. The mockingbird, in other words, performs harder for the reflection than for an actual bird, because the reflection never responds. And a rival that gives no social feedback triggers an escalation loop the bird cannot exit without a response. It will never receive. If you have seen this in your yard, a bird that keeps returning to the same window, the same mirror, the same reflective car door, drop it in the comments right now. Tell me what species it was and how long it lasted. The answers people leave are genuinely fascinating to read, and they tell us something real about which birds in which regions are most prone to this behavior. Now, here is the tension spike. The thing that is harder to believe the first time you hear it. This behavior, the repeated return to the window, has a documented endpoint. And that endpoint is not the bird giving up. It is the bird's own hormonal cycle shutting the behavior down. Territorial display in songbirds is driven by a surge in testosterone that peaks during the breeding season and then drops sharply over a period of days to weeks. A 2009 study in hormones and behavior by Wingfield and Soma tracked testosterone levels in free-living male song sparrows across the breeding season and found that the peak territorial aggression window lasts, on average, between 23 and 31 days before the hormonal substrate that drives it collapses. What this means is that the bird at your window is not choosing to come back. It is being chemically compelled to come back. And it will stop. Not because it learned, not because it won, but because the chemistry that started the fight eventually stops producing the fuel that keeps it going. That is the moment worth sitting with. The bird was never in control of the behavior in the way we think of control. It was running a biological program, a program 40 million years in the making, and your window, your ordinary kitchen window, became the surface that program ran against. If you know someone who has ever stood at their window watching a bird do this and wondered what was happening, send them this video. What they are about to understand will permanently change the way they see that moment. Here is the emotional weight of this, stated plainly. Consider what that bird weighs. A male American robin weighs 77 grams. That is roughly the weight of a standard deck of playing cards. Now consider what that 77-gram body is doing every time it returns to your window. Its testosterone is elevated. Its cortisol is elevated. Its heart rate during the display is running at roughly 600 beats per minute, more than twice its resting rate. It is burning energy it needs for feeding, for nest guarding, for actual survival. And it does this, researchers estimate, for an average of 3 to 4 hours per day across the full territorial season. Not because it chooses to, because it cannot stop. Because the program says the rival is still there, and the rival is always still there, because glass does not submit, and glass does not leave. That 77-gram bird is spending a significant fraction of its daily energy budget fighting something that does not exist, and it will not stop until its own body chemistry forces it to stop. There is something in that which feels almost unbearably close to something human. The fight that cannot be won, the rival that never yields, the compulsion that outlasts the logic behind it. The bird does not know this, but you do now. The window you look at every morning is not just glass. It has never been just glass. It is a mirror in a territory. It is a surface that every reflective light morning turns into the most persistent rival any bird in your yard will ever face. It has been doing this every spring, probably for as long as you have lived in your home, and the birds have been responding to it, one hormonal season at a time, without you ever fully knowing what you were witnessing. Now you know. Go look out your window right now. If a bird comes back today, you will see it differently, not as a confused animal bumping into glass, as an animal running the deepest program it has, with everything it has, against the one.